Hello and welcome back. So in this section, we're going to continue on with the transformations of our hyperbolas, okay? And we're going to start off with example 3 here, all right? So when we look at this particular function, y equals 1 over x plus 2, what we're essentially looking for is, has it moved left or right, or has it moved up and down, okay? Now, when I look at the denominator, the x is by itself, okay? So it hasn't moved left or right, okay? All right, now the other thing that I look at is for the number off the side. And if this number exists, all right, it's not a 0, it means the hyperbola has either moved up or down. Because this is a +2, our hyperbola has moved up 2. And the other thing to consider as well is that this is a positive hyperbola, so it'll be in the top right and bottom left quadrants, okay? So just like before, we're going to get stuck into it and have a little bit of a look with the sketching steps, okay? So we want to look at the asymptotes, okay? All right, so the first asymptote that we consider always is the horizontal asymptote, or the y value, okay? And that's whatever number is off over here. So we know y cannot equal +2. All right, remember with this number, it's always the same. It's not the opposite like what it is on the bottom, okay? All right, so y cannot equal +2. Then we look at the denominator, all right? And we know that we set the denominator being not able to equal 0, and it's just the denominator by itself. So that is the other asymptote that we have. So now we'll just have a little bit of a sketch. We'll put these on. Okay, so we know x can't equal 0. Okay, now already we know there isn't going to be any y-intercepts for this graph because it can't cross the y-axis due to the asymptote. All right, now y equals 2, like I said, is going to be our next asymptote. Okay, so just sketching along here. And you'll notice that our asymptote is simply just shifted upwards for the horizontal version, okay? So step 2, we're going to find the y-intercepts, but remember when we're doing this sort of stuff, okay, we need to check where the asymptotes are. Unfortunately, there is no y-intercept, okay, because the y-axis is an asymptote, so there's no y-intercept because x cannot equal 0, okay? Step 3, we want to find the x-int. Okay, or the x-intercept. Okay, so let y equal 0 to find the x-intercept. Okay, so therefore, in this function up here, all right, we're just letting one side of it equal 0. So we have 1 over x plus 2 is equal to 0. Okay, now for solving the equation. So take the +2 to the other side, it'll become a -2. All right. We are essentially, I'm going to do this in one step, but just bear with me. We're essentially going to multiply the x up, and then we're going to divide the -2 on the bottom. So we end up with -1/2 is equal to x. That's essentially what's happening. I'm just doing all of it in one step, okay? All right. So our x-intercept is going to happen at -1/2. So if we add that in on our graph here, okay, essentially around about here at -1/2 is where our hyperbola is going to intercept. Now, step 4, we're going to check whether it's positive or negative because that determines what quadrants it's in, and we know that it's positive because the number on top right here is positive. So we know that it's going to be in this quadrant, and it's going to be in this quadrant down here, all right, around our asymptotes. All right, okay. So let's have a little bit of a look, and we're going to deep dive into this. Now that we've done all of those steps, we're able to sketch, okay? All right, so we're going to take it up here. We're up in the top right-hand quadrant here. Now notice when I say top right-hand quadrant, I don't mean the top right-hand quadrant of the y and x axes. I mean of my asymptotes, okay? And now we'll sketch here. Oh my goodness, I apologize for that. We're going to sketch this. I might start down here first. Okay. All right, and I'll just fix that up just a little bit. Okay. We're just trying to show our graph approaching the vertical asymptote as well. So y equals 1 over x plus 2. So that's just a hyperbola that hasn't shifted sideways, it's only shifted directly up. Okay, so let's have a look at the last one that I'm going to do in regards to hyperbolas. Okay, it's still following the same steps every single time. Okay, it's essentially just understanding the behavior of the graph now. So at this point, you might want to pause the video and have a go at this one yourself. Y equals 1 over x plus 1 minus 1. Okay, you can have a go at it and you can see how you go, but just have a bit of a practice, okay? Now, if you've had a bit of a practice, I'm going to take you through it, All right, so I always look at the graph and I try to understand the behavior of what's going on. So I look here, this number out the side says that my hyperbola is shifted down 1 unit in terms of the asymptote. The denominator tells me that it is shifted to the left 1 unit because it's positive, all right? And this tells me that it's a positive hyperbola, so it'll be in the top right and bottom left of my quadrants, okay? So let's dive in and have a little bit of a look at how we sketch, right? And so we go along with the asymptotes, okay? Now I do the horizontal asymptote first, which is the y asymptote. So y cannot equal -1, so that's just this number sitting off here by itself to the side. And I set the denominator not equal to 0 because we can't divide by 0, so x can also not equal to -1. So my two asymptotes, interestingly enough, are almost very, very similar, okay? So I will just move this very, very slightly, just so you can line things up a little bit better. We'll try and add a little bit of scale to this one to help us out. Okay, so we have our vertical asymptote happening here at x equal to -1, and our horizontal asymptote happening here at y equal to -1. All right, now that we've done that, okay, we're going to try and find x and y-intercepts. So if you look at our asymptotes, we're going to have an x and a y-intercept. Okay, we've just got to find where they are. All right, so let's find our y-intercept first. Okay, so to find y-int, let x equals 0. So we go back up to our equation. We end up with y equals 1 over 0 plus 1 minus 1. Okay, that'll become 1 over 1 minus 1, which will give us our y-intercept occurring at 0. So we know it's going to cross through the origin just there on our graph. Okay, so step 3, all right, we want to find the x-intercept. Okay, so to find x-intercept, usually when you're finding your x-intercept with hyperbolas, it's a little bit harder. You have to play around with the equation a little bit, but it's okay, okay? So we're just going to let the whole equation equal 0. So we have 1 over x plus 1 minus 1 equals 0. 1 over x plus 1 is equal to 1. Now, essentially what we're doing here is we're just going to take this whole denominator up and we're going to multiply, okay? Because it's a divide here, we're going to do the inverse operation. Now, if we multiply by 1, we're actually just going to have 1 equals x plus 1. We could put it in brackets like this with a 1 out the front. We don't really need to do that because it doesn't help us in the long run, okay? All right, now solving x, to get x by itself, we're going to subtract 1 from both sides, and that will just give us x equals 0 as our x-intercept. All right, that's convenient because it means both our y and x-intercept are happening here on the origin. All right, the final step that we'll do, I might put it over here. Okay, step 4 is we're going to determine whether it's positive or negative. Okay, and that's just to help us find which quadrants it is. So we look at the number on top. We know it's positive, so we know it's going to be up in these two quadrants around our asymptotes. Okay, all right, so it's a positive hyperbola. Now that we have all of that information in, we can sit down and we can sketch it, okay? So sketching our hyperbola will look a little bit like this, okay? All right, and then we want to do the other branch of our hyperbola, as it's called. Okay. Looking a little bit like that. So 1 over x plus 1 minus 1. So this is just a hyperbola that's moved left 1 and then down 1. Okay, so that's where we combine the two techniques. If I had a negative on the top, okay, we could switch this around a little bit and you'd have other interesting intercepts and all of that sort of stuff. But because I'm not doing that in this particular video, it's just a matter of just playing around, just understanding and going through this step-by-step process. Okay? All right, so that's all for us on sketching hyperbolas. In our next video, we're going to look at indirect variation and how we apply hyperbolic skills to real-world applications to understand relationships between variables. Okay, thank you.